Welcome to a new year and a new episode of the Poets Lighthouse. I am, as always, your host, poet and writer from the San Francisco Bay Area, Finn Bell, bringing poets and their poetry lives into your living room. Joining me now on our comfy, familiar virtual studio is 7th Poet Laureate Emerita of San Francisco, Kim Shuck. Welcome, welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So, folks, in 2019, Kim was awarded an inaugural National Laureate Fellowship from the Academy of American Poets. She is solo author of 8 books, part of the editorial team for 8 more. And according to the bio that she has sent us, she has worked in an absurd number of anthologies. It is a true honor to have you here, Kim, once again. I can't say that enough. Going into our very first question, in a quote from Dr. Jenny Davis, she mentions as a distinct mark of your poetry the intersection of art and community, activism and political engagement.
Mm-hmm.
What do you believe becomes of one's art? What would its purpose be directed? Where would its purpose be directed with the community, with this activism absent from it?
I don't know that we ever know the answer to that question as artists at all. People make parts of themselves, make parts of their story out of what we do, which is, of course, an honor. But I don't know without the activism where my work would land. I think, I don't know. I know that with some of the activist writings that I've done, that I've had young Native women come up to me and say that they felt seen, which is really important to me. I don't know. I think we're each given work to do, and I feel like part of my work is agitating for things I think are really important.
Do you think it's enough to be just the point of agitation? And like you said, where you have been approached by young Native American women, where they have been seen, they felt heard, they felt seen. Do you think it's enough to have been the agitation, the spark, and they take that journey forward? So it actually is coming, to its full journey, to its full circle?
Well, I have to think that the work that we do is enough.
Yes.
That whatever it is, it's what we're doing. It is enough. I did what Dr. Davis calls a poetry action, in which I wrote every day for a certain number of days about murdered and missing Indigenous women. And I read that at Haskell Indian Nations University. And afterwards, and I myself lost my daughter. And one of the young women came up to me and said, hey, if you ever need somebody to let you know that your lipstick's wrong, I'm here. And then she told me the story about how she lost her mother and that they still weren't investigating it. So there are some things in which feeling seen is a lot.
Yes. When you said that, that is just something that somebody who has known you a long time, it's comforting to hear hear it phrased that way. But it's like coming from a family member, for somebody to tell you your lipstick is wrong. My mom passed, recently too. And that would be something that would be conveyed from a mother to a daughter. that family would say, that familiarity, that comfort. Um, um, I have to mention that those little things do count. Have knowing somebody through their poetry, by them mentioning very intimate acts that happen, that were passed on to them. I had a guest previously where she was talking about the ritual of her mom teaching her to comb her hair. That's a very like mother to daughter act, and just conveying that comfort. It was just profound. So
Hmm.
just hearing that, something as simple as that, as humorously as it was put, that was just very deeply moving.
I we both cried.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Grief understands grief. That's true.
That could not be more true.
Yeah. So you mentioned the poem a day. So when you are directing focus
Hmm.
to issues or topics that are not, receiving their due attention that they deserve, where does the act of these poems a day find that connection that starts from the word and ends up at the action?
It sort of depends on the topic, because some of them are really local and some of them are really national and some of them have been international.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the Murdered Missing series was something I was doing to exercise my own demons.
Mm.
But because of the timing of it, I think it touched a lot more people. And then while I was writing those poems, um, a very close person to me ended up getting killed, and somebody who is related to people I know ended up getting kidnapped. So that went through parts of my community pretty intensely. And then we ended up making a chapbook out of it, and I donated all of my the money I would have gotten from it to to an organization that I think is really worthwhile. It's doing mapping of the disappearance and murder of Indigenous women. Um, so that's kind of, I mean, it helped fuel the activism for it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think there's a certain, what is it? Linda Knoll, who is the former laureate of Ukiah and is also Koyunkawi Maidu from up north,
Mm-hmm.
um, talks about some of what I do as being cry song, like helping people mourn a sorrow. So some of what I do is that. And then there's just me being a belligerent cuss and criticizing the San Francisco, um, well, various organs of San Francisco um, politics on the
Mm-hmm.
subject of a statue that I thought should probably be gone. And I wasn't the only one who thought that. So, that's basically me chanting for the people who are out there protesting. And it's a different machine, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, I also wrote poems during the standoff at Standing Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm making it sound like it's all indigenous. It's not. Some of it's about having empathy for people. For example, in Haiti, when
Yeah.
the earthquake, and it wasn't just an earthquake. It was like they had an extremely bad time going. So I think my writing activism fits in where it fits in, and it's different every time. And you've got to kind of be flexible if you're going to do that kind of work.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. No. It is meant to be dictated by, but what the situation is. And there is power just in itself in the invocation of it, in the invocation and the consistency of it as it builds up.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, dearest viewers, we must pause regretfully for a very tiny break. But when we do return, please return with us as we continue this wonderful, very absorbing chat with our guest. Thank you, viewers, for returning from the break with us. Here in our virtual studio is our special guest tonight, San Francisco Poet Laureate Emerita, Kim Shuck. Hello again. We're back. Kim, on your artist page, bio page, your beautiful, intricate beadwork was displayed. And I was immediately taken by you stating this. My beading is worn on the body or requires touch. What also intrigued me is how you mentioned, I've always found that I am happier making these things that require few tools. I feel this desire for more connected, intimate relationships with all the excess stripped away to reveal this honesty that can speak about as much in a poem that enables you to change a person, whether you change their their perspective on something or change something very vital that was locked inside that they weren't aware of. Do you feel about your poetry, in a sense, in a certain sense, about the same thing or something similar as you do with your tactile art?
Yeah. Well, I hope that it's medicine for somebody, you know?
Yeah.
Um, we read a poem and people take it in through their ears, but they also feel the vibrations through their skin. The human body is an instrument.
Mm.
It's also a textile. Um, I think we're affected by everything we come in contact with. But I like to think that the intention of the making has some effect on it as well. So,
I do like that. When you said about the vibration on the skin, thinking about how little we're actually experiencing when the words are conveyed to us in a poem. Um, you you mentioning that is making me really truly want to go move forward and open the entirety of my being to it. Maybe sometimes I am guarding myself against, um, the so-called ubiquitous trigger warning or content warning that you tend to bring yourself farther back, as opposed to opening your heart, opening this whole being and experiencing it, come what may, and seeing how you come out at the other end of experiencing that poem.
mhm. Yeah, I think sometimes to be human, we have to do that.
Oh yeah.
You know, we
And
feel
that
these
is,
things; they're real feelings.
they are.
They're as real as anything else. Uh,
And that just the courage in doing that's that beginning step um, is an important element to not losing that sense of yourself, that part of yourself that that makes us human and connected.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
it's essential. There's a whole philosophy about
Yeah,
being human, and that it's not just a matter of birth and genetics. You actually have to work at that
yeah,
and be
exactly.
open to everybody and feel all the things you're feeling. And it's really hard right now, particular, we're still partially shut down from this pandemic,
Yeah,
you know. So I mean, some people are reflecting just themselves or whatever small portion comes in through the internet or, a partner, or maybe it's a big family and you're reflecting a lot, but whatever it is, we're all sort of floating around in this soup together, and it's important to be there for it.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Even if we're trying to relearn relearn a few things, being having been experiencing this. um, Kim, I wanted to go into a little bit into discussing your one poem, which is included in the Exile Heart,
Mhm.
and it is "Do It with the American Indian Religious Freedom Act."
Yeah.
I'm going to um, I'm going to read to you a portion of it, a stanza that really stayed with me for really quite a bit. Gazing into the night, we wished on a falling law, blew on dried lawweed seeds, and, still waiting on results,
Mhm.
fell asleep to a story of keeping promises.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is is what's prompted you to write these riveting lines? Or is that does that remain fresh in your mind right now, having it read back to you? Can
Oh
you please
yeah.
tell us more about this?
Yeah. So a, a lot of our ceremonies were still illegal until 1978, when the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed.
Hmm.
And I am old enough to remember that year quite clearly. Um, and whenever people say we haven't made progress, I point to this, because it shouldn't have ever been that way, but it was that way, and it's changed.
Hmm.
Um, but every couple of years, you get guys getting their feathers confiscated at ceremonial dances if they aren't carrying their card. Um, you get sort of random and abstract things start happening to people as some kind of new wave of policy, and
Hmm.
it's pretty difficult. I mean, it would take a really long time to explain how people end up with feathers and what that's about. But uh, you're awarded them by the community, and I'll
Hmm.
just leave it at that. And so it's a big deal
Yeah.
to have them confiscated, and it's a big deal not to have those feathers danced in that dance. Um, so every time we gain back some space of what the promises have been, other things are taken away, and that's what that poem is really about. And um, it's like a sparring match, and it's pretty continual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just that's beyond like tragic that that has to happen, and it
Mm.
just not coming from a place where they can understand the significance of like what you said, seemingly probably seemingly innocent to them, the confiscation of a feather, but not understanding what what went into the the importance of it, the significance of it, in in ceremony, and understanding the importance of the ceremony itself, and having these traditions, having these rituals stripped away is or being denied it is
Well, I'll tell you
pretty
something that's
tantamount.
not a secret. Here's something that is not a secret. We didn't stop doing them. It's just that sometimes people got arrested for it.
That is mind-boggling. No, I'm
So
serious.
there's that.
Yeah.
um, here's another thing I just want to put out there.
Yeah, please
There
do.
are some great things about being Native. There's a lot of really bad things that are imposed from the outside, but there's some lovely things about being Indigenous, and wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, I think the sense of humor is part of it.
Yes, you have to have that, and I think many of us not coming from, and I know I'm going to be pinged so much for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Not coming from being the colonizer, but from being the colonized. It's a blessing. It truly is.
There are
Have
aspects of it.
yes,
The moral
there
high
is.
ground has better air.
Yes, exactly. I just
You think I
I
was a poet, right?
inserting those in there. That's just you're my hero.
Thank you. I've
So
heard you read too, so
oh yes, I try not to, but hey, have to sometimes. But I'm happy that I was able to read for you and the group that you were in. It's those things are kismet for me.
mm,
So, Kim, if you would please, we are coming almost to the conclusion of our lovely sit down here, but I would like, before we part ways, to humbly request that you honor us with a reading of perhaps one or two of your poems, if you would.
I'll read you. I know we're not supposed to have favorite poems, but this is from Exile Heart. Bridges and Crossroads. WPA bridge over the Neosho. I stood on it in full flood with my dad, the water just kissing the undersides of the boards, the river moans shivering up my legs. It stood until a flood licked out the footings. They replaced it, but when I dream the Neosho, the old bridge is there. They took the zinc out until they hit daylight of 3rd Street. You could see the crack in the pavement. It looked like another pothole, and there was sunlight in the mine. Sunlight just there, with the dull ache of lead and the grim scowl of Jack. Those cottonmouths know some songs, too. They know some fish songs. And one day, crossing Tar Creek Bridge, a grandma snake got hit by a pickup, and in her last breaths, we drove up on her there like a burning library, her songs falling away in curls, taken by updrafts like smoke prayers there near the water. She looked me in the heart and whispered, just the one secret. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Smoke prayers. Love that. Thank you so much for honoring us with one of your poems. So before we end this, I wanted to ask you one last question, if I may, Kim.
Mm.
So if you could ignite the flame and pass it on in just one way right now, and that flame being the one idea or encouragement that incites positive change or action, if you can impart this to the formation of a budding poet, what would you say to them right now?
You're right. You are right.
Amen. Right there. I want to thank you, Kim, for so graciously accepting our invitation to sit down with us here tonight. Dearest Poets Lighthouse viewers, please check out Kim's latest book, Exile Heart, which is available through Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and everywhere that fine books are offered. You can also find out more about Kim and her art on her page, kimshuck.com, as well as on her Facebook page at kshuckart page. Please continue to show love for the Poetry Global Network by following us at PGN Official all across our social media and subscribing to, viewing, and sharing our shows on YouTube and Instagram. Please have a fruitful and hope filled 2022.